with us and we're recording. Angela, would you mind introducing yourself and telling our guest who you are, how long in the business, and what the most important thing they should know about Angela Jones?
Okay, I'm Angela Jones. I've been selling real estate since 2004. I started as a dual career. I was working for a small business trade association full-time and doing real estate on the side, and decided in 2005 to go in full tilt selling, and I've been doing it since then. And I am past president of the DC Association of Realtors, 2017 Realtor of the Year. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I know a lot of people, and I've done a lot of work with the associations too. So I get involved, and that's something everybody should do.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Dale Mattison, please tell the folks who you are and what they should know about you.
Gosh, Angela, if you feel like you've been doing it a long time,
I know.
I don't know what to say, but I'm Dale Mattison with Long & Foster. I've been practicing real estate for 48 years.
48 years. Oh my gosh.
Some days it really feels like it. And I still enjoy it. I do some teaching with Long & Foster, serve on their master faculty, which just gives me renewed energy and invigorates me to keep on down the path. I've been involved in numerous leadership roles at the local, state, and national level of the Realtor triangle there. And so I'm really excited to be here with you today, and as we can push forward the awareness of Black History Month and also what diversity and inclusion means to us and our industry.
Love it. Thank you both so much. And we're just going to keep powering through. If Betty does come on, just know we will pause to introduce her. Betty Pear has served for a long time on the DC Association of Realtors Board, been on the Public Policy Committee. Again, a legacy agent that has impacted the industry in many ways and done significant work in her neighborhoods in the city. So Betty's awesome, and we hope to have her here. But if not, we're going to power through because we got lots of experience on this panel right here with us. So first, Angela, I guess, where have you been licensed, and geographically in the region, kind of where have you worked over the years?
I'm licensed in all 3 jurisdictions, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And I learned a long time ago that if you are selling real estate in this area, you really do have to have all 3 licenses. And I primarily sell in DC, but I often will have clients who will say, oh, I want to buy something in Maryland. Oh, no, let's go to Virginia. So I go all over, but mostly in DC.
Gotcha. And I guess to segue on that question, in terms of getting started, what was it, you know, from an inspiration or from a support standpoint that really helped you get your foothold when you got started? And how do you think your race, being a woman of color, played into that?
Well, one thing that I learned a long time ago was that, you know, people have been selling real estate for over 100 years. So I didn't need to reinvent the wheel. So I paid attention to people in my office. I learned from them. I talked to people a lot, and I just started to work the floor duty and go to open houses and do as much as I could, but knowing that I needed to also serve people that I knew. So I focused on people who know, like, and trust me. I do that a lot. I work by referral. So that's something that I've continued to do since I started. And being a woman of color, I don't think that my status as a woman of color really impacted or impacts how I sell real estate. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to treat you the same way, no matter who you are, and I would hope that you would do the same thing for me. So I try to, you know, not make assumptions about people, but I know that sometimes I will be the only person in the room who is of color. I've lived that way almost all my life. All the jobs that I've had before, this is my 3rd career, my 1st career, 2nd career, same thing. I was usually the only person of color in the room. And my mother taught me a long time ago that wherever I am, I belong. And it didn't matter. So that's kind of how I see things.
Love it. Respect. And we'll come back to a couple of those points. Dale, okay, in terms of the region, I guess, where did you work specifically? And then getting started, what was it? Because again, that was 48 years ago, right, when you did get started. Talk to us a little bit about just what it was like kind of navigating that as a young man of color at that time.
Well, I'm also tri-licensed. As Angela pointed out, I think it's almost imperative if you work, particularly if you're working with people relocating to the DC area, they want to look around the Beltway. So it really helps for the tri-license. I started with Jonas Company in Rockville back in the mid 70s, and they were big builders in Montgomery County, Flower Valley, and a number of other different communities. And they opened up a brokerage division to handle resales in communities that they had built and sold in. So I joined them. The industry was a lot different back then. The agents of today are so fortunate and lucky because there's so much training available to them, either online or offline, or through the association or outside of the association. So there's no excuse for an agent today to be able to sharpen their saw and be really good at what they do. Whereas I remember the first day I walked in the real estate office with my license in hand, I remember my sales manager at that time, he took me to a desk and said, "This is yours," patted me on my back and walked away and kind of left me there to figure out what to do. And so for the first 8 to 10 years, I just kind of floundered through real estate, made a sale here and there, but really didn't have a great degree of focus or business acumen to really push a practice into a business-like state. And so eventually I came across some mentors who were kind enough to put me under their wing, and I started to learn a lot more and then just really take off from there.
Love it. Angela, when I asked the question initially, you said pretty definitively that you work with people, you help them, your race from your perspective doesn't impact the service that you give. I guess for anyone out there that may have felt that their race impacted how folks talk to them, what can we say to them about kind of how they respond in adopting that same mindset you have, that, the service you give won't change based on how they look, but if someone's coming at you in a certain way, just the response there, how have you developed that perspective and response that you have?
Well, yeah, I am someone who always gives the person the benefit of the doubt until they show me otherwise. And something that I live by is that not all money is good money. So if someone comes at me and I have the sense that there is some hesitation or whatever, I walk away, because at the end of the day, there's enough real estate for everybody. And I don't, because I work so hard to help people and help them find homes and do all the things that I do. I'm not going to put a lot of time and energy if you aren't receptive to it. So if for whatever reason, it could be because of the color of my skin, it could be because I'm a woman, it could be because I'm gay, whatever it is, I don't worry about it. I just move on because there is enough. So again, I don't make assumptions. I really do try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. But if you show me that there is something there, then I back off and go away.
Love that. Remember that, folks. Not all money is good money. That's so true. And I think there's a challenge that all realtors and agents have to not be desperate or to be forced, if you will, into a situation that forces them to work with someone that clearly doesn't want to work with them or is going to treat them a certain kind of way. I think you got to put more effort into finding other opportunities so you're not stuck with them. But that's just my perspective.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Dale, same question to someone who is, facing what they feel like is discrimination. They feel like someone is not receiving them in a certain way because of the color of their skin. What advice would you have for kind of navigating that? Because I imagine in your career, you've probably had some visceral experiences, and anything you want to share, please help.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of live in this phenomenon, whether we're Black or Hispanic or Asian. You live that life every day as you go from place to place. And so, I often tell my kids, living while Black. And so we feel that. And so there have been times that I have felt because I'm Black, I didn't get the listing. Or you go out on an appointment and you have a really good conversation going on with that person ahead of time, and you get to their door and they see who you really are if they haven't Googled you online already, and you can kind of tell that there's that twang there of, gosh, this interpersonal relationship, and how do we get past it? I think as a practitioner, you just got to be sharp at what you do. You've got to be better than the others. You've got to be very poised. You've got to be able to communicate well. You've got to be confident in how you move forward. And if you bring those traits along with you as you go to do business, then you'll overcome that nuance of discrimination to some degree. In some cases, you're not going to, like Angela said, it's not good money, and you go on to the other thing. But from the total spectrum of our industry, you know, there are those of us of color, but then there's the majority as well. And I think the majority has to pay attention. They have to wake up and realize that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they will be the minority. And if they're not doing business with the Blacks and the Hispanics and the Asians and have their practices set up so that they're members of all across the spectrum in their groups and in their companies, then they're going to miss out on 25, 30, 40, 50% of the opportunities to do business. And so it's important for all of us to pay attention to this.
So I heard a couple good things there that I want to make sure folks didn't gloss over. I think you expressed that there are situations where you have to show up more prepared with, you know, say thicker skin with an even better set of scripts and things to say, because someone that might judge you, you're going to work to overcome that with competency, excellence, and doing your job at a really high level, right? So that's something that I want everybody to hear, that, you know, showing up for the same job, sometimes the standard for a person of color, you have to overperform to, you know, get past whatever perception that person was having of you that might not let you get the job. And that's a, you know, an important thing to think, but it's also, you know, sometimes kind of sad, right? To say that you might have to show up and do an even higher level of service, do even more work to impress for the same opportunity. And that kind of juxtaposes Angela's position, where if someone is coming at you with something that you feel is not welcome, that you feel might be discriminatory, you also have the choice to say, no, I don't have to do this extra if you're going to treat me that way. So I love that, you know, you guys are showing there's two different ways to come at it, but both of them can end in you controlling your narrative, controlling what happens, and controlling what you do. So thank you for framing that in great ways. And did I frame that correctly, Dale? Was that the right way to say that?
Absolutely, very well.
Yeah, and Harrison, I'll add something to that point as well. And in that, when I say don't assume, so I went on a listing a while back, and I thought I had it because the guy, we grew up in the same town. I knew some of the same people. His mom went to the same school I went to. I mean, it was just that family connection, I thought. And he chose someone else. So, and the person he chose was a gay man. And I'm like, well, okay, well, maybe he just wanted to deal with that gay man. So I don't know. But I didn't get all wound up about it and thinking, oh, well, it was me. It's like, you know, you just never know. So I always go at it, don't assume anything. Don't make assumptions about somebody. So that helps me.
Because that assumption they were making, right? I think when consumers make the assumption and come at you and say, just because you are black, white, purple, gay, brown, short, tall, whatever, that it's going to impact the service you give, we know that that's not always going to be true. And Dale said we got to work harder to do it. So thank you for that. Race in real estate has been a really big conversation over the last few years, right? I say since George Floyd, there have been a lot more spaces carved out in the industry to talk about it. So the perspective I'd love for y'all to talk about and share is, have things significantly improved, right? Like, are we in a better place? Is there still work to do? What is your thought about, I guess, progression since you got started and kind of where we are today? And then second question is, what are some things from an industry side, from a real estate industry side, need to happen to continue to improve the situation for Black and brown folks participating in the market? So both two questions, if that makes sense.
Well, I think we've come some distance, although if you look at the historical path of dealing with racism within our country, our society, and you go back to the late 50s and early 60s, we thought we kind of made some progress during those times. And then a number of years passed by where the talk about racism was much more subdued. And then along comes George Floyd and other instances or occurrences of more recent time. And then we look at the picture and wonder, well, have we made that much progress? Or did we just go silent for a good period of time? And now we need to work on this issue some more. I serve in a number of different capacities. I chaired our Diversity and Inclusion Committee last year. I work on a couple of groups with the National Association that are working on diversity and inclusion as well. And one of our goals is to try to make sure that this is not just a temporary conversation, but that pieces are put in place, that templates are made, that mindsets are impacted, so that this becomes a constant discussion from now on. The interesting thing on the national level, there were some surveys done, and when you look at the results of those surveys, half of our practitioners wanted to know, why are we even discussing diversity? What's that got to do with us selling real estate and making money? And so there's a good group of people that are out there kind of oblivious to the impact and the ramifications that not addressing diversity means for us individually, as a group, and as an industry.
Angela, any thoughts on kind of where we've come and also what can be done moving forward?
Okay, so yeah, I think just having discussions about this shows that we've come a long way, because when I started in 2004, we weren't having discussions about this at all. So I see the conversations, and I mean, I hear the conversations, and I know that we're focused on it a little bit more. So that's good. What I don't see a lot of, and I think we as individuals should look at ourselves. I was on the diversity committee for NAR for many, many years. And one year they did a survey to find out where most of the real estate dollars were going, what group got the most money in terms of commissions and things like that. And one thing that struck me was that the African-American community had a lower rate of revenue and income from real estate than anybody else. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, why is that? And I looked around the room, and I didn't see a whole lot of Black folks sitting around the room. So I say, yes, it's great to talk about it. We're talking about diversity, but we have to show up and participate. If you want things to change, you want things to be better, you've got to be in the room. So when I go to the conference, the mid-year comes up, I go every year. It's right down the road. Now it's not down the road anymore, but when it's right down the road, I go so I can meet people. And I don't see a lot of diversity there. Go to the national conventions, not a lot of diversity. Yes, it costs money to go, but guess what? That's an investment in your business. So do that. So that's, if we're going to talk about it, we should take it to the next level. Participate. You've got to be there. You've got to participate. You've got to join committees and be a part of the association and donate and do all those things of your time. And then that is when things will really change.
That's interesting you say that, Angela. I applaud you for that comment. I can remember the very first national convention that I went to was in 1982 in San Francisco. And I get there, and there are 12, 14,000 real estate agents from across the country there. And I saw almost none of me. And so I left that convention feeling kind of disenchanted. Do we belong here? Are we appreciated here? Is there a place for us here? And so, yeah, you got to be in that room. You got to go. You got to participate. And when you do participate, folks like us, Angela and Harrison and myself and others, when you get in these positions of leadership, or participation positions, you have to bring other folks along with you so that they can experience the same thing too. I was looking at a Olympics interview this morning, and often the interviewers will ask the participants, well, how do you feel about impacting the young kids that watched your performance at the Olympics? And all of them talked about getting tweets and emails and comments from the younger viewers of the Olympics about how excited they are to see these people participating. And so we've got to create that same kind of culture and action and results within our industry as well.
And you can't wait to be invited. You just have to go and participate and get involved. Don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder or ask you if you want to. Just do it.
Well, and that, Angela, I think that point acknowledges that it does take some courage. It takes stepping into the unknown. And Dale, that first time you were there in '82, like that is not a comfortable place to be an extreme minority. And that gives you even less kind of agency or authority to speak up and you know, do the different things that leadership over the years has taught all of us. So it does take some courage to do it initially. And hopefully if you hear nothing else today from the three leaders that have been doing things nationally and have been doing them for a while, is that for people of color, from an involvement and NAR standpoint, your involvement is wanted, your involvement is needed, your perspective and words are helpful, right? And they will and can, if you choose to assert them, actually have an impact, right? And would we like the impact to be bigger and faster? And we want more folks to come along? Absolutely. But I think it's a mix, Angela, of the folks that are going to choose to go out of their way to step up and step into that unknown. I make it a mission to continue to encourage, like both of you have encouraged me directly, right? That has helped me on my path. And I want, you know, the other folks that are curious about this at all to ask the questions, to come and show up. And what we're all saying is that when you choose to show up, specifically from an NAR volunteer leadership standpoint, what you get from a positive on the other side is outstanding, is amazing. It's really good things that you get when you choose to show up, if you can kind of stomach that little bit of unknown, that you know, discomfort, if you will, from being in the minority. And the only way it changes is that, and I think we're in a really interesting point too, where in the next few years, the leadership is going to continue to be more encouraging of different voices and the power and importance of diverse voices at the table in leadership. So we're in a really good time for folks that are just curious about it to step up. So I'm really grateful for both of y'all saying that explicitly. And yes, show up to what's locally, show up to what's out of town. Only good things happen when you make your world bigger, right? That's something I say over and over again. And I feel like privilege allows a lot of folks to be able to do that, specifically, you know, white people that have been in the industry or second and third generation, to know that I can go to these things and good stuff happens, right? If you didn't have anyone tell you that I go to the events and good stuff happens, how would you know? So I think those points that you made were absolutely outstanding, and thank you for that. Did you have anything else around association and kind of what can be done or what can be done to make it better?
You know, I was tapped on the shoulder to be on the policy committee for GCAAR. Hadn't heard of it, didn't know what was going on, but someone asked me to be on the committee, and I got on the committee. When you are, I always go back to my mom. My mom always said to me, if you're the only person in the room, that's okay, because you're there because you belong there. So if you have some hesitancy about joining a committee or participating in any way, just know that there are people around you who probably are a little hesitant as well. Grab them by the arm and say, come on, let's go. Because if you're not involved and you don't know what's going on, it will impact your business. My past career as a public relations person, I worked for a small business trade association, and the president always said, if you don't get involved in politics, politics will run your business. Well, if you don't get involved in the association and the politics around the things that the legislature comes up with or the city council comes up with, it's going to run your business. So you need to be involved so that you know what's going on, so that you can stop stupid stuff from happening, because they're always coming up with stupid things or things that they say, oh, that's such a good idea, let's do it. You have to be at the table, and you have to be involved and active in that.
So if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? Period.
Yep.
It's a real thing. All right, so pivoting back to, I guess locally, something that really excited me about this conversation was understanding who some potential mentors or heroes of yours might be, right? I think one of the most exciting things to me about association work is understanding a lineage and legacy and who, you know, was the encouraged. So Angela and Dale, you mentioned people that might have encouraged you before. Is there anyone that you'd like this audience to know about that helped you get started, or that was someone important that got you started in your career back in the day? And I guess, Dale, if we can start with you.
Well, you know, for a while, I worked with a small brokerage out in Tacoma Park. And the owner of that brokerage, Alfred Ecubane, was a top producer with Shannon and Lux many years before me joining his firm. And he was almost a workaholic. I mean, he kept this thick planning book with lots of pieces of paper of leads in there, and went through that list every day. And if you were in his office and you went out to show a piece of property and you come back, he would always ask, well, where's the contract? And so it's kind of like you go out to show a house, you don't go out to show a house, you go out to sell a house. And so, you know, what are the results when you came back? And so he was very strong in teaching me a work ethic that I hadn't had before, where I had kind of gotten in the business and was kind of floundering along, just kind of doing whatever I wanted to do. And working with him, I developed a much more systematic approach and a much more results-oriented approach that helped me move to the next level. And then I had a sales manager by the name of, oh gosh, his name was just on the top of my head. Ada Asaweko was his name. And he used to sell, before selling real estate and managing a real estate office, he sold encyclopedias, Encyclopedia Britannicas door to door, and was a rock star in the encyclopedia sales world. And so to be able to go out and sell an intangible kind of thing like an encyclopedia, it's, you know, you go knock at somebody's door at 6 o'clock and they're fixing dinner, and they don't want to talk to an encyclopedia salesperson, and you convince them to buy a set of books. You know, that takes a lot of skill set. And so he helped me kind of hone and work on my skill set substantially. And then there've been lots of other people since then. And I think Angela mentioned about not inventing the wheel, reinventing the wheel. The wheel has been around how long? And does it still turn? Does it still roll the Tesla of today as well as the Model T of yesterday? And so it still works well. We don't have to reinvent it. We just got to learn it, sharpen it, adapt it to our personality, and move forward and use it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Angela, anybody specifically you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was told to find someone that I appreciated in terms of how they did their business, and just follow them. And there are two people in my sphere that I think about often in terms of helping me, Candy Miles Crocker and Marge Rosner, both of them. Candy had training every Monday, 1 o'clock. I was always there. And I took in everything that she had to say and I put it to use. And Marge was someone that I would call if I had a problem or had a concern. And I learned from her something that I still keep in my mind today. If you get up in the morning, someone's going to disappoint you. Don't take it personally. So when you have that friend who buys a home with someone else, even though you've been taking him around for weeks and he decides to let someone else sell him a house, or their sister-in-law who lets someone else sell her a house, just know that it's going to be that way. And that has helped me continue to do what I do every day. Just remembering what Marge has said and the training that Candy gave me. So I'll definitely give a shout out to both of them.
Love it. Love it. Pivoting back to the things you have seen over your careers and legacy. Neighborhoods have changed, demographics have changed in the city and region. Let's dive into that a little bit. Dale, I guess I'll start with you from a legacy standpoint. You have seen, in fact, Dale, I think we talked about this. One of my best friends, one of my groomsmen's parents, you sold them their first house in Fort Washington. I think it was in like the early 80s. And they saw a picture of me and Danae, like, oh, Dale, they sold my parents' house. I'm like, of course it did, because he was there. Talk about neighborhood change, and I guess through this lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, what have you seen? And then on the second part, what, if anything, can realtors do about it, or should think about it, or talk about? How should we talk about neighborhood change? So Dale, any perspectives you got on that?
Oh gosh, lots of change in the 48 years I've been out here. I mean, you look at the demographics of DC, and we used to be Chocolate City, and I find it very hard now to find chocolate stores in the city. It's just, they don't exist as much anymore, and so the demographic shift is very obvious. But I think as a practitioner, my feeling is that we've got to help people that want real estate. And I noticed a posting of somebody announcing their award status for 2021 within the last day or two. And they talked about, oh, I know you all think all I sell are these big expensive houses, but I sell everything to anybody that needs real estate. And I think as a practitioner, I've always worked from that vantage point as well. If you come to me, if you're buying a $150,000 condo today, I'm going to help you find it, assuming that it exists and it's a reality in the state of the marketplace. And if you want to buy a $2 million property, I'll certainly help you with that one as well. And if you develop systems and techniques and methodologies, you're not going to spend much more time on one property as you'll spend on another one and working with the client. And so you can achieve the success. But, how great is it when you've had the opportunity to sell somebody a property that they thought they couldn't buy? I have a customer who recently I worked with for 3 years. When I first met them, they had terrible credit, no savings, but were intent on buying a home, and no other real estate agent would even talk to them. And so I talked to them, we developed some action plans for them, some accountability checkpoints, and went through that over a 3-year period, and they got their credit straight, they got some money saved up, and we helped them buy a piece of property, and now they love me. Everybody that ever talks about real estate, they send them my way. And so that's how we have to react to the people that we serve. We are in a service business. And yeah, we like to sell the big properties, but the small properties and people buying those properties need help and service as well.
So definitely acknowledging the change that has happened, but an important point I don't want folks to gloss over before we go to Angela is that, I think a way we can help all people still, maintain ownership or get into the city is by putting a little bit more effort for maybe those price points that are lower, or the buyers that may seem more challenging up front. Like, make space for that, and you can do both. I think that's an important thing to say, right, Dale? It doesn't have to be, everyone would love to be a $1 million listing, Josh Flagg, or whoever the dude is and wherever. But I think a way you actually impact communities in a city like DC that's changing fast is helping people find a way to own something now, right? Because time is that universal money solving. So thank you. Angela, any comments on the change?
Yeah, so definitely the city has changed. I've lived in DC longer than I've lived anywhere in my life. I came here in 1987, the day after Christmas, and I have seen so much change. And just in my neighborhood, I live in Bloomingdale, and we moved in Bloomingdale in 2004. And there was nothing. And my wife was picking up garbage on the streets, and we were putting a sign in the yard all the time. And we finally just said, okay, if it doesn't change in a couple of years, then we'll move. Well, it's changed, and we have $1 million houses in our neighborhood. And it's like, wow, all these people are coming in. And it's great. But one thing that I think we as realtors have to think about, when I bought my first home, I was determined to not pay someone else's mortgage. That was the impetus for me getting my first home. And I bought what I could afford. And it was a little house in Brookland. on right off of North Capitol Street. And that house I still own. And I've refinanced it a couple of times and I've pulled money out and I've done other things. And it's been a great investment for me. I think that we have an obligation to people in this town, especially, to let them know that home ownership is something that they can achieve, and it's something that we can help them with. Bill, you're so right. Yes, we want those $1 million listings, but I'm happy to help someone buy a $150,000 condo. If it's your first condo and you want it, and that's all you can afford, I'm going to find a way to help you. And we should all come at it from that standpoint. Another thing that we have to do as realtors is get the people in charge, the council members and people in Annapolis, to know and understand that the best way for people to have any kind of wealth is through real estate, and they need to do their part in helping with programs that will help someone. HPAP, that's something that a lot of people use, but it's awful in terms of getting things done. And there's no reason for it to be that complicated. So I don't know, maybe from this, we can have another panel discussion about ways to free up some funding for people to be able to afford a house and help them understand why it's important to own real estate. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, perfect mention and segue, Angela. I know our communications team at GCAAR is working on better synthesizing and explaining the first-time buyer programs in Montgomery County and DC, so that agents, so that the use of them and interacting with them is not just mystified and, oh, it's hard. It's like, hey, here's exactly how this works, because I believe we are the conduit to a lot of folks that have extenuating circumstances, right? Like, yeah, if you got $1 million in cash, sure, that's easy. We can do a lot of things for you. But for those that have a non-traditional path or not a straight line to home ownership, what I'm hearing both of y'all say is those are the folks that we as realtors need to make space for and still find time to help. And guess what? You still get paid at the end, right? You're not doing any of this free. And when you help that person out, it's going to mean so much more to them to be able to own something, build some wealth, and have future opportunities. So great point. And yes, we are working on the communication point. And that's where getting involved is a big deal as well, right? Because if you are involved, then you do have a path and a conduit to speak to policymakers about the things you are seeing in the field. So that's why we need more diverse voices and different folks that have different lived experiences to be involved in our association. So thank you for that, Angela. Okay, so we hit a bunch of topics thus far. I guess one that we didn't really go into yet is from a brokerage ownership or a team leading standpoint. Can you help people understand why having a diverse sales team, a diverse office, a diverse group of folks that are working with you is important to running a good business in our region? Can you talk about that a little bit, like why it's important for diversity to be a part of the business that managers, brokers, and operators of sales businesses are running?
Well, I think that it's super important. You look at the demographics of our region, and they are very diverse. And so if you want to have a plethora of potential leads or clients to do business with, it only makes good sense to expand the membership within your brokerage or within your team to include people that can, one, be recognizable, but two, also approach the other segments of the real estate market. I remember when I ran an extremely active team, it's been a few years back now, I had a Hispanic agent on my team, and I worked with him to help him develop an action plan where he could go out and attack the Hispanic marketplace. And the goal at that point was to identify all of the Hispanic business owners who, one, were making decent incomes, two, were going to be very qualified to buy a decent piece of real estate, and three, could come into our team buy a piece of real estate and support the growth and the production levels within our team as well. And so if you're running a team or you're running a brokerage, can you see how having those participants within your groups can be beneficial from a production standpoint, and it just makes good business sense.
And one size does not fit all. That's why I think it's so important to have diversity in your office, in your team. I run things by a lot of different people when I have a situation or a question about something. And it's that diversity that helps you see things from a different perspective, because people come at things in a different way and they bring their culture, they bring their upbringing to the table. So it's important to utilize that and to have that conversation, that diversity, so that you can have a better team and do better for everyone involved.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing both of you say is that it makes it as important because it makes good business sense. It opens you up
Absolutely.
to more opportunities. And it's also, I think, what you should do to create opportunities for folks that need it most, right? It's both with your wallet and with your heart and with what you should do, right? It sounds like it's on both sides of it.
Exactly.
And that's honestly, I feel like that message I wish that were repeated more, especially to the folks that asked the question, like you said, Dale, earlier, of, well, why do I need to talk about this? Why does this matter? If we are just thinking about this from an entrepreneurial capitalist mindset or whatever, you think about this because you can build a better business opportunity for yourself and succeed through others if you do it in the right way. So
exactly.
More creative people thinking about spreading that message. Okay, so as we wrap up, if anyone does have questions that they'd like to throw into the chat for Dale or Angela, we're happy to ask them that. But my last question for the both of you is, we've given some great tips thus far. It's been so awesome to hear about your experience and your path to get to where you are now. As we look at kind of the future of our region and our industry, what are the things, I guess, from either policy or from a things that associations can impact standpoint that need to happen to help more folks achieve some of the success and gains and this boom that we're feeling? What are some things that need to happen regionally and that our associations can impact and realtors can impact that will help more people participate in all the growth and boom that's happening, right? Because it's a hot real estate market, but how does that prosperity get spread further, I guess is my question. How do y'all think about that? Good softball for the end, huh?
Yeah. I'll go first. So one thing, and we've talked about this a little bit. I'm going to challenge everyone who's participating in this session today to reach out to your association, GCAAR, DCAAR, and ask if there's an opportunity for you to get involved. It is so important that we participate in all the activities, we go to the meetings, we become a part of the committees and those things. That's the best way to impact not just our association locally, but that's the best way to impact our association nationally and give us greater visibility. And it will help us in terms of our pocketbooks. When you're out there and you're meeting people from all over the country, all over the world, you have opportunities to impact them in a positive way in terms of real estate if you're active and involved. So I'm going to challenge everyone to do that. So that's, for me, the most important thing. You have to be involved. You have to get on a committee. You have to participate in the calls for action. You have to contribute to RPAC. You have to do all of those things because it's not just going out and selling a house. It's more than that. You're impacting someone's life, their life. You're giving them an opportunity to build wealth. And I think the only way you can really do that effectively is to become involved.
My realtor friend in North Carolina, who, by the way, I met by being involved in NAR, Lee Brown, always says, what are you doing to sharpen you're soft.
Mhm.
What are you doing to get better at the craft of real estate? And so, as Angela said, being involved with the association, but as I was looking through the list of attendees in this group, it's a very impressive group of people that have spent their time with us this afternoon. Thanks for doing so. But I encourage all of you to go to your next sales meeting and give a shout out to this webinar. How was it? It'll be recorded, so you could potentially share the recording of what took place with everybody within your office or within your group or within your brokerage, and start to spread the word. We need to get more people involved. I mean, we've got an association with 11,000 members. And so why don't we have 800 on this call? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Instead of 43.
Mhm.
Okay. And so, you often talk with your fellow practitioners, and it's easy to get a complaint out of them. I don't like this. This isn't going well. It's much more difficult to hear a positive statement from them. I went to this webinar. The information that was given was just phenomenal. It really opened up my mind to consider real estate a little bit differently today, and you ought to listen to it. And so what are we doing to impact how we feel if our glass is half full, and how the people around us are reacting to what's available to them as well? And I've tried to do that through my entire career.
You
Yeah.
have. No, you
Yeah.
definitely have. And if I can make a connection to that, there is no association for homeowners, right? We
Right.
as realtors, as our realtor association, a part of our charge is like to protect our profession and, to protect homeownership in general. But for homeowners, they don't have representation in the same way. So to Angela's point, the more empowered our members of diverse backgrounds are, and everybody is, to be more involved and to speak up and advocate, those actions and thoughts and ideas are going to have a direct impact on the homeowners that we know, on the communities we live in, on our city and on our region. So, that's why it is important for you to get involved. And on the way there, you have the opportunity to earn a very handsome and comfortable living, right? You can do both things at once. So I think both of your points about getting involved and making us better makes me think of that old proverb or saying that a rising tide lifts all ships, right? The better each of us are individually, the better our association is. The more we hear from more folks and they are involved, the better impacts that's going to end up having out in the community. Because what we do at a high level is advocate and lobby and make sure that the policy and things that are written are going to help not just us, but the homeowners we serve and the communities we live in. So this was, like going to church here at the Infamy. I appreciate that. I'm inspired. I'm about to pass the collection plate around in a little bit. It's an investment in RPAC. So get ready for it. I do want to say thank you both so much for your time today. Thank you for your legacy, for your impact, for all the things you've done, not just for me personally, but for our industry, local, state, and national. You're both titans in our industry, and I hope folks on this call understand that. They're very humble, but we have significant personalities that are right here with us. So thank you. Give your flowers right now. Thank you for that. Any final thoughts before we wrap up and before I shout out the couple dates people need to be aware of coming up? Anything y'all like to say in closing?
No, and just reiterate, get involved. I mean, it's so important. I want to see more people at the table. I want to see more people at those meetings. NAR especially.
Show up. Sir Dale, closing thoughts.
If I can do it, anybody can.
Love it. Well, I want to say thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you to everyone that stayed with us through, the hour of the presentation. Please check GCAAR.com for our upcoming profession sessions. I'll plug the March 17th cryptocurrency conversation we're having, and the rest of the History and Power Real Estate series. We'll be coming back with more of these later in the year. And the work that Dale and Tiffany Ann started last year with our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, an important part of that is our DE&I Champions program. We need more folks to step up and get involved in that. And we're going to have more communication around that. It's really doing 3 simple things to earn an honor. It's taking the At Home with Diversity course. It is taking the Fair Haven fair housing simulation, and then also watching the bias override video. This is what Charlie Oppler challenged everybody at NAR leadership level to do last year. We are challenging our folks locally to do it, to be involved in a committee coming up. So DE&I Champions program was just put in the chat. Please participate in that. There's so much good information that comes from it, and it just empowers you to start to walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. So with that, I'll say thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate both of you. I can't wait to see everybody when we see y'all in person at something soon. I promise we're gonna see you this year. We're gonna put it out there, see you in person safe. So thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Harrison.
Thanks,
Great.
Harrison.